Prynhawn da i chi gyd, a pleser bod efo chi gyd pnawn 'ma. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I'm Rhian Hughes, and I'm the Wales Partnership Manager at the Money and Pension Service. So I'm going to share with you over the next few minutes who we are, what we do, and how we've also approached support to the cost of living situation that we're in as well. So the slides will be shared after today's event. Sorry, I can still hear background noise. If you could put yourselves on mute, if that's okay, thanks. Yeah, I will be sharing the slides after today as well. There will be, as Chris said, some time, hopefully at the end, to ask some questions, but please feel free to put them in the chat, and if I can't answer them today, Okay, so we'll get started. So if you're not familiar with the organisation, who the Money and Pension Service are, we have been set up by UK government, and originally bringing together the work of the Money Advice Service, PensionWise, and the Pensions Advisory Service. We're an arm's length body of the Department for Work and Pensions, and we're funded by levies from the financial services and pensions industry. And we are basically here to help people across the UK, and especially for us in Wales, to help people make the most of their money and their pensions throughout their lifetime. Okay, so we talk pocket money to pensions and everything else in between as well. So when those three organisations came together, they were our consumer brand. Okay, so if you think about the Money and Pension Service, or MAPS, as the parent of the organisation, those consumer brands have now been brought together. So Money and Pension guidance is all in one place, and that's through our consumer brand, Helper Arian Money Helper. Okay, so before we start, just to let you know, we provide guidance, we don't provide advice. Okay, if you need advice, we can signpost you to specialist help as well. And I won't be providing, if there's any specific questions on, what to do and things like that, all I can say is I will be signposting you to our consumer brand, Helper Arian Money Helper. Okay, but hopefully we can chat through that at the end. Okay, so let's talk about financial well-being. Okay, and I would say more important now than ever. And this is how we see financial well-being here at MAPS. We want people to be able to make the most of their money on a day-to-day basis, that you are able to deal with any unexpected events, and that you're on track for a healthy financial future. So you feel, if somebody with good financial well-being feels financially resilient, feels confident, and feels empowered about their financial well-being. Okay. Sorry, there is somebody still with a microphone on. If you put yourself on mute, please. Okay, so yeah, so financial well-being, as I said, is more important than ever. Okay, and we need to look at financial well-being as importantly as we look at physical, mental, and social well-being. So financial well-being matters to everybody. Okay, it's important for us as individuals, it's important to our communities, it's important to businesses, and it's important to the economy as a whole as well. Financial stress is, and money worries have a huge impact on our overall well-being. Okay, so especially at the moment when, the cost of living situation that we're in, when I used to talk about, unexpected events, it might have been your washing machine breaking down, or your car needing a service or something like that. And we now have to deal with, we've had to deal with a full-on pandemic and the cost of living situation as well. So we're here to help people. Okay, and that's what we do, is help people build their financial well-being, get the help they need when they need it, and move people forward, hopefully in their lives as well. So just to put some more emphasis on financial worries and financial difficulties, and what that impacts, as I said, on our mental well-being, on our physical well-being. If you are worried about money, and, if anybody is on the call or knows anybody that's worried about money, please just reach out for that help. Okay. And that's maybe the most difficult step, but it's the most important one as well. So, you reach out for that help and get that help as soon as possible. So you know, with money worries, that will have an impact on our own mental well-being, because we'll be worried about money, we'll you know, feel anxious, etc. And I don't need to read all those in that list for you to understand the impact, but on our physical well-being as well, especially, you know, with organizations around this virtual table today. You're supporting people within the community. So, you know, the impact of financial difficulties on our physical health will include things like not putting our heating on, so that will lead to illness. Or, you know, not being able to eat as well as what we used to do. So that will lead to physical problems as well. Our social well-being, maybe, you know, we haven't got the money to do the things that we used to do, socialize with our friends, etc. So that has a huge impact. So think about financial well-being as equal to, if not more important than, the other forms of well-being. Okay, so I just want to give you a quick background as well to some of the work that we do at the Money and Pension Service. Hopefully some of you may around the table may be familiar with our Wales delivery plan. So going back to pre-COVID, or just before COVID hit, we developed our UK strategy for financial wellbeing. And we basically looked at, you know, held events to look at what's important for the people of the UK, but also what's important for us in Wales as well. So over the next 8 years or so now, because it's a 10-year strategy, so the UK strategy for financial wellbeing will look at these 5 key goals. Okay, so from the research that we held and gaining, you know, one of the goals, which looks at financial foundations. We want children and young people to receive a meaningful financial education. Okay, that's not just in schools, but that's also, you know, through parents and carers as well. The second one is around a nation of savers. So we want people to be able to, you know, get that savings habit, be able to deal with those unexpected events, to be able to build their financial resilience going forward. The third one is around credit, and we want to help people, and we want to reduce the number of people who rely on credit for day-to-day bills and food. Okay, very challenging at the moment, some of these, I know. But we also, you know, people borrow money. It's a fact of life, okay? And we all borrow money at some time. So, but what we want to do is help people access that affordable credit and community finance as well. So knowing where to go for affordable credit and community finance. Looking at debt advice, we fund debt advice in England from a Money and Pension Service perspective, but that's a devolved responsibility in Wales. Okay, so we want to more people accessing debt advice sooner, so they're able to deal with those debts as well. So as I said, debt advice in Wales is a devolved responsibility, and that is delivered through the Welsh Government's Single Advice Fund, looking at social welfare law as well. And then finally, we want to look at future focus, so people are able and understand more to plan for in later life. Okay, so things like pensions, etc. Through all that, we're looking at it through the lenses of mental health, gender, and workplace. All this information you can find on the Money and Pension Service website, so maps.org.uk. You'll find links to the strategy as well. So in Wales, through the lockdown, we held numerous virtual roundtables where we brought stakeholders together, you know, around the table to look at, well, what does this strategy look like for us in Wales? So we've developed the Wales delivery plan, which looks at us, you know, specifically for Wales. And we are pleased to say that through our work with Welsh Government, this is co-authored with Welsh Government. As I said, you'll be able to find more detail on the website, but please get in touch with me if you want to talk further as well, or with my colleague who's leading on this work, Lee Phillips, who's our Wales manager for MAPS. You'll see there we have a progress report. So we update this twice a year. So we want to be, you know, shouting about what the good things that are happening in Wales around financial wellbeing. So if you feel that you're working on a project that would benefit from, you know, other people hearing about, please get in touch, because we want to hear about it as well. Every 3 years we hold a financial wellbeing survey. And I won't go through all of these, but you can see them on the screen and you can see them on the slides when I share them. But you'll see that these are 2021 figures. So post-COVID, but pre-cost of living. Okay, but still stark figures as well. So, 58% of people don't have a plan for their finances in retirement. 68% of people aren't satisfied with their overall financial circumstances. Okay, so this is just a flavour of, for us in Wales and how people feel. So that gives you a bit of context to the work that we do here at MAPS, which is just a small part of it. I want to now introduce you to Helper Arian, Money Helper, our consumer brand. Okay. You'll see there's a QR code. So if you've got your phones, you can go on there. And what I would say is, please go on Money Helper, have a play with it. There's a wealth of information on there. And through our Money Helper service, which is available online, over the phone, WhatsApp and web chat, we provide that free and impartial money and pension guidance. Okay, and that's the key here. It's free. Okay, it's impartial, so we don't promote products, and it's a trusted place for you to go to find that information. Okay, as I said, we provide guidance. If you need something like specialist debt advice, for example, we will signpost you to where you can find that free debt advice. Okay, so you'll see there's a link there to Money Helper. So I'm just going to share some content with you and also what we've done through the cost of living. Again, fully bilingual, so you can switch from English to Cymraeg yn ôl I Saesneg. So available, as I said, online over the phone as well. And I'll share those details shortly. So when you go on to Money Helper, you'll see we've got different sections. We talk about benefits, we talk about everyday money, family and care, homes, money troubles, pensions and retirement, savings and work. Okay, and a lot more as well. And just to say, for public and third sector organisations or any organisation, this is free information for you to share on your own platforms or to share with your customers, with your staff, with your clients. So, please feel free to get in touch with me after today to see how you can do that. We don't want you to reinvent the wheel. We've written content that you can put in a newsletter. We've written content that you can put on your websites. We've got tools and calculators that you can share free of charge. Okay. I sound as if I'm selling something, don't I? But no, I'm not selling anything because it's all free. So yes, we just want to help people. So please get in touch to see how we can share it further as well. So yes, I'm just going to share a few more things with you. You'll see again, Cymraeg, Saesneg, and I'm just going to concentrate a bit on the cost of living situation. So you will see on when you go onto the front page of Money Helper that there is a section there on help with the cost of living. Okay, so we've also recently produced a help with the cost of living guide. Okay. You can download that off the website and have a read of it. You can order these guides free of charge as well. Okay, so we have free printed guides and the cost of living is one of them. They are extremely popular, so please bear with us if they are out of stock. When you go onto the website, they will be in stock soon because we are replenishing our stocks as well. Again, Cymraeg a Saesneg. So when you go on to Money Helper, you'll see we've got, information. If you are living on a squeezed income, what help there is available for you. Things like talking to your creditor. Okay. As I know, you will be aware, people are struggling now who may not have struggled before. Okay. So we're seeing, people new to maybe struggling with money and may not have had to speak to a creditor before, for example. We've got help there to help you speak to your creditor. We've got information there on what the, if you're worried about the rates, the mortgage rates rising, there's help there as well. If you are thinking of, if you're in the workplace and you're thinking of reducing your pension contributions in the workplace, please have a look at this first, okay? Please give our guys a ring. We've got pension specialists at the end of the phone to guide you through, what to do and maybe, other alternatives to stopping those contributions as well. Using credit wisely, people are accessing and want to borrow money. please, use our guides to help you on the right track. You might be self-employed, somebody within the community might be self-employed. We've got guides there as well. Redundancy and losing your job, there's information there to help you. We have, I mentioned our free printed guides, which I'll share as well. We have one on redundancy support as well. One of the new calculators that have just been developed in partnership with Invest is our benefits calculator. We want to make sure that everybody is accessing what they're entitled to, okay? And we all know, it can be confusing to find what you're entitled to. So we've introduced the new benefits calculator to make sure people are accessing the help and the support that they're entitled to. So have a play. You can have a play with all these tools. You can't break them. If you could, I would have done it by now, believe you me. So the new benefits calculator. We also have a bill prioritizer tool, and that's to help if people are struggling with their bills. If you're in the pre-arrear stage, this isn't for you if you're in debt, okay? If you're in debt, you need debt advice. So please use our debt advice locator tool to find that free debt advice, either online, over the phone, or in your local area. And how the bill prioritizer works is, if you're struggling with any of those bills, you highlight them and it will give you that extra guidance on what to do next. I mentioned pensions. PensionWise is a service offered by Money Helper. If you remember how we came together, PensionWise is still, has got the same badge. PensionWise is for anybody over 50 with a defined contribution pension, and you can book a PensionWise appointment with somebody from our pensions team as well. As I said, we've got loads of tools and calculators. Have a look at them, have a play with them. There's a budget planner. If you're looking at, money coming in and going out, you can save the budget planner and revisit it on a further date as well. There is a link there where you can order these free printed guides, okay? And they are free. It's free postage, free. There's no cost element at all. So whether it's making the most of your money, as I said, redundancy, pensions, credit unions, etc. Online, over the phone, as I said, that's the number that you can ring. You can speak to us in English, and we're there at the end of the phone to help. For some of the organisations that will be around this virtual table today, I wanted to share one of the programmes that will, I think, be of interest to you. We've developed our Money Guiders programme, okay? And we've launched the Money Guider programme because what we feel is that whichever door somebody walks into for money guidance, we want to make sure that it's good money guidance that they receive, okay? So as we know, much of life is shaped by how we manage our money. So when people do reach out for that help, we want to make sure that it's good help that they're getting. So the programme is all based around a competency framework, and you can find all this information online as well, but I'd happily have a chat with how you can get involved in the Money Guiders programme. We've started with, we had a pilot which ended last year, and we've developed an e-learning programme, which is free training available to public and third sector organisations, okay? So you might have staff and, money guidance might not be part of their day-to-day job, but you're actually signposting to somebody else for help. That's money guidance, okay? Even signposting for help. So we've developed the programme to look at, to build that confidence, skills and understanding when you're delivering money guidance, but also, more importantly, to look at that boundary between money guidance and stepping into that regulated space of advice, and what you shouldn't be doing to step into that regulated space unless you're qualified to do that, okay? Because, we're all there well-intentioned to give help, but it's also that boundary between, where you shouldn't be stepping into that space if you're not qualified. So we've trained hundreds of practitioners across Wales, offered this e-learning free of charge. So whether you're working in social services, it's good, you'll be coming into contact on a daily basis with your clients, a local authority, third sector, working in mental health, etc. We'd like to speak to you about how you become a Money Guider partner, okay? It's a 2.5-hour foundation level to start with, and you don't have to do the 2.5 hours all in one go. There's a City and Guilds recognition award. So once you've done the 2.5 hours, you spend a few minutes doing an assessment, and then you get a badge at the end. Okay, so through providing this training to your staff, or through undertaking this training, you have that confidence that staff are providing money guidance well, okay, and saying the right things as well. So there you'll see the foundation level, and then alongside that now we have what we call our technical domains. So these are optional, but open as well, and we encourage those who have done the initial training, to carry on with the foundation, with the technical domains as well. So this is extra things on, might be welfare and benefits, insurance, pensions, etc. It's not to make you specialists. So if you look at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, for example, you'll see that debt stops at tier 1. The reason for this is that you only need to know a little bit about debt, what debt is. Anything else, you need to hand it over to a specialist, okay, who is qualified to give that debt advice. We have a Money Guider Network Wales, where we put different events on. I'm currently planning one for veterans, so bringing those who work in the veterans community together to share, what it's like to support veterans at the Armed Forces community and their families in Wales. We've held events on gambling, and these events here are, you can join these if you're not a Money Guiders partner as well. Okay. I am mindful of time and for open to questions. We have a money and mental health toolkit that you can also use if you're working maybe within mental health or within the community as well. That's downloadable. Please get in touch if you want some hard copies, because we can get those out to you as well. Just a couple of more slides, and I wanted to share this. Okay, this is something that we can all shout about. Hopefully, if you're not familiar with child trust funds, if you or anybody you know or anybody you support or have children who were born between the 1st September 2002, 2nd of January 2011, and receive child benefit, they will have a child trust fund. Okay, so these accounts were introduced by the UK government. Welsh government added on to them as well, so children in Wales have got more money, and even if a parent or a guardian didn't open that account, HMRC would have done it automatically. Okay, and I'm going to skip to the startling figure at the bottom. There are already, and these matured I think a year last September, there are already over 41,000 in unclaimed child trust funds, and that equates to around £80 million. So there's a money of £80 million sat there waiting for 18 or 19-year-olds to access. Okay, even if a child is 16, 17, make sure they're engaged with a child trust fund, so they make sure they receive their child trust fund. Child trust fund will be in the name of the child, but please promote it. If you have newsletters, if you're working in the community, if you're on the community council, just ask those questions and share that as well. We want to put this money, it's not our money, it's children's money that they're entitled to. Follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, any social media. You'll find more information on the work that we do. Money Helper has a Twitter page as well, so you'll see stuff coming out there daily. And thank you. Any questions? I appreciate that was a very fast whistle-stop tour of who we are and what we do. I will put my just there, I'll put my email there for now. I will put it in the chat as well. Please get in touch, because I would like to help your organisation look at financial well-being and how you can support your staff, your customers, and anybody else that we can help as well. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name's Dave Horton. I'm a co-director at an organisation called ACE, Action in Cairo and Ely, in the west of Cardiff. I'm going to be sharing particularly some perspectives from a place-based organisation that does provide ongoing kind of guidance and support for people in the cost of living crisis, but in particular has taken, I guess, what we describe as a strength-based, place-based, asset-based approach to kind of trying to meet long-term needs in our community. So what I'm going to try and unpick with you today is just how those two things relate to each other, how we can put the kind of immediate support that we provide around the cost of living crisis into a context and integrate it with longer-term community-led strength-based approaches to meeting need, and what happens when you do that and why we think that's effective. Has that slide moved on? Can I just have a thumbs up? I think it has. Good. I'm going to apologise as well that my colleague Neris, I was hoping would be with me today but can't join us, is our kind of expert in some of these cost of living issues. So if there are detailed questions about issues that I'm not able to help with, I'm happy to take them by email or in the chat and follow that up with people afterwards when Neris is available. But I'm going to start just by introducing Ely and Cairo, the community where ACE is based. Hopefully you'll understand as the talk goes on why the place and the context for us is so important, and why the particular approaches we take are very nuanced and specific to the place that we're based and to the opportunities and strengths of that particular community. So to give you an introduction to Ely and Cairo, I'm sure some of you will have heard of it, and many of you might even have been to the community. It's the largest housing estate in Wales with a population of 26,000 people. Very interesting social history. So the north of the estate, Ely, was built after the First World War in the Homes for Heroes scheme on garden village principles. In Cairo, the south side was built after the Second World War and the Bevans house building scheme after the Second World War. And the community for many years was sustained by a number of very effective, secure, long-term employers in the area, mostly in manufacturing industries. They're the largest paper mill in Europe with 500 employees at the point when it closed in the early 90s, 2 brickworks, a chillers, jam and pickles factory, a fizzy drinks factory, large employers providing secure, well-paid, full-time work for people that were integrated into the local community. All that disappeared from our community over the course of 20, 30 years, leaving us with high levels of unemployment. But one major change we've seen and that we're tackling day to day in our community centres is a big increase in in-work poverty. So we saw this happening as you started seeing the story coming out in the news at that moment when the statistics switched and over 50% of people, families experiencing poverty had at least one person in work. And we saw that happen. We saw it develop over the last sort of 10, 15 years. So we're doing a lot of work supporting people now who are actually in work but still struggling to make ends meet. As a result, the kind of challenges we face are low incomes, poor health and poor mental health. At least 50% of the people we work with at any one time have a mental health problem. And the sort of story and stigma that has come associated with our community, which people who live here end up kind of owning and believing for themselves. But to finish this just very short introduction to Ely and Cairo, I want to emphasize the strengths of the place, that it has extremely high levels of social capital and strong family and friendship networks. We know lots of people who have lived in their houses since they were built, who are now in the 70s and 80s, and have networks of support in the community. And this has been a really strong basis to build a particular approach based on relationships and based on strengths, which we think is very effective for meeting these needs. Now that you'll have picked up that we're kind of, we've been on a journey in a way away from what we describe as a deficit model that saw our community as a problem that needs solving by people and professionals from the outside, to coming to understand our community as somewhere of great strengths. It's not a problem that needs solving. It's a place where we can nurture and identify and nurture and make use of the strength and skills and experiences that people have. So we have a very strong ethos of doing things with people, not to or for people. We believe that everyone has something to contribute, and if anyone is unable to contribute as a result, then everybody in our community loses out. And as a result, we've created an organisation where people participate throughout, local people participate throughout as staff, as volunteers. We have 95 volunteers and 40 staff, and as trustees of the organisation. So it's an organisation that is built on asset-based and co-production principles, and this means, so we're looking for kind of long-term solutions to things based on those strengths. You'll have picked up that for us, the cost of living crisis, it is a crisis, but actually many of the aspects of the cost of living crisis that you'll be familiar with, people struggling to pay fuel bills, people having to decide whether to eat or to heat their homes, people struggling with low incomes and how that kind of plays into these factors of increasing costs for essentials. We've been facing those issues in our community for 15, 16 years. The cost of living crisis has basically exacerbated that problem significantly and increased the numbers of people that we need to support drastically. So that's the challenges for us, but the long-term presence of our organisation in the community means that we're able to seek to combine quick fixes with longer-term, more sustainable and more empowering solutions. So that's what I'm going to try and unpick for you now. And one of the key questions that you'll see emerge as I speak is that this tension between taking an asset-based approach, how we maintain that, but also meet increasingly high demand for immediate solutions to cost of living problems. And that's the tension that we sometimes struggle to kind of meet. I'm going to very quickly show a video, if that's all right, if I can get it to work, because I think it gives a context and actually a feel for what we do and how it works. So I'm going to share screen. I'm hoping this will work. This is a short video. Can people see that?
Yeah.
I'm just going to check that I've set that up properly. I've got to share sound. I've done that now. So you should be able to hear it as well. This is actually a campaign video, and it's of interest because it will give you a sense of how ACE runs and the sort of work that we do with local people. But it also give you a feel for how we fund some of that work, which is through crowdfunding and giving people an opportunity to contribute to solutions themselves. So I'm going to play this. Any problems, if you can't hear it or see it, please let me know.
We're launching this crowdfunder to raise money for ACE, Action in Caira and Ely. ACE runs 2 community centres in Ely and Caira in Cardiff. For over 10 years, ACE has been working together with our local community to respond to needs and build strength together through mutual support. People come to ACE for a whole load of different reasons. They might need practical help because they're experiencing financial crisis. They might come for advice on benefits or fuel bills. Members of our pantry come to access affordable food and have a chat. People come to learn creative and practical skills in our arts and heritage projects, or volunteer in our 3 community gardens. A huge part of what we do is simply being here. We are a warm, safe place where people can come for a chat, have lunch in our cafe, and feel that they belong. We're raising money right now because we've seen a dramatic increase in demand for our crisis support services. Our fuel bills have rocketed, just like everywhere else, so the cost of running our 2 community centres has increased too. 2 things are clear to see. We are needed more than ever, and it costs us more than ever to do this work. Thanks to Co-op's Warm Spaces funding boost, we have a fantastic opportunity to access match funding for each donation. They will double every donation we get, up to £250. This funding will help us pay the bills and sustain our vital work in the months to come. It will enable us to do more, like offer a free breakfast in our cafe to everyone who comes into crisis hour. Please do donate and spread the word. Thank you.
Okay, so that's hopefully a nice little intro explaining kind of what it looks like in practice. So you can imagine yourself now at our Dusty Forge Community Centre and the sort of feel of the place and the kind of work that we do there. I'm going to just outline that work now under 2 headings, really. The first one is guidance, support and practical provision. My slides aren't going on. There we go. Can people see that? So these are our activities and projects that are characterized by open access, which means anyone can access them. It's the things that people come and ask us for immediate help with, and they need an immediate result. So it's often people coming with real crisis around income, struggling to put food on the table, struggling to heat their homes. This type of work prioritizes practical assistance, and it's based very much on need, people coming to us with a need, and the opportunities for a sort of our favoured strength-based response are less obvious. So I'm going to run through these and then move on to our longer-term strength-based approaches and then talk about how they relate to each other. So the first thing we provide is 2 morning sessions a week of drop-in guidance and support. And through this, we have staff who are experienced and qualified and are able to provide the following support for people. Benefit entitlement checks. So we work with people on universal credit entitlement and make sure people are getting everything they're entitled to. We support people with new claims for universal credit and in navigating the universal credit system. We can provide online access for people, we can help them make phone calls, and we can help them fill in forms. We provide extra support for those with health conditions, and we do a lot of work looking at personal independence payment, so PIP support, which is extra cost available associated with a health condition, and we're able to do that in-house. We offer first level debt support, but we refer directly to a specialist debt advisor for the reasons that Rhiannon explained earlier. We also do a lot of work helping people access white goods, so we can apply directly for grants that support people to access ovens, washing machines. These are often the things that push people over. People have been on the edge and struggling already, push them over into serious debt and problems is when the oven suddenly packs in or the fridge packs in. So we do immediate support for that kind of thing. We have in the last year introduced a new system called Crisis Hour. The reason being we were finding that actually some people were in such immediate crisis that twice a week morning sessions weren't enough. We needed to be available to people immediately. So every weekday morning, Monday to Friday, we hold a crisis hour, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And primarily that is aimed at enabling people to access either the food bank and or fuel vouchers. So we work very closely with our local food bank, and many communities will have food banks. We can provide the referral voucher and point people in the right direction to get crisis food. And I'll talk to you in a minute about our longer term food project, which supports people with affordable food day in, day out over the long term. Our fuel voucher scheme has been funded by the Welsh Government through Cardiff Council, and we administer that for the whole of Cardiff. Unfortunately, the funding is coming to an end for that, but we have some private donors lined up who are going to continue funding that through the council. So we've been working with the council to find private business donors to continue that work. So people come to us at the crisis hour and we're able to provide them with fuel vouchers to top up prepaid meters, and we can provide that over the phone in a text format. So we do a lot of that. We're doing hundreds of them a month at the moment. We have been providing a warm space. So we use both of our community centres, the Dusty Forge Centre and the Kaya Community Heritage Centre, as warm spaces. And these run 3 or 4 times a week. They provide a warm space. They provide warm food, creative activities, and we provide Wi-Fi and charging points, because one of the things we're discovering is that one of the things people are doing to cut their energy costs is not charging up phones, which means actually they're unable to access some of the support they would be able to online. So we realized that was actually quite a crucial thing that maybe was being missed. So we provide charging points, we enable people to charge up their devices so they can stay in touch with each other and with support providers. The Warm Bank has been funded by Cardiff Council through C3SC. Some of you will be aware of that funding for warm spaces. We don't know if that will be repeated. At the moment, we're still able to run them, and we would be hoping to do that again next year when it gets cold as well. The next thing is referral to organisations. We work with an awful lot of organisations that can provide a whole variety of support. We work with Cardiff Council Money Advice Team. I'd really recommend this website. I appreciate that many of you won't be in Cardiff, but I'm assuming there's some equivalent in other local authority areas. www.cardiffmoneyadvice.co.uk. I don't think we've got time to have a look now, but please have a look. It's incredibly comprehensive gathering of all the different support that's available to people with the cost of living crisis. We refer to the Speakeasy Law Centre, which is a local debt and benefit advice voluntary sector provision. Very effective, has similar values to ACE, very relational in its approach. So we make good use of them around particularly debt issues. We refer to Citizens Advice Bureau, although sometimes the waiting list can be a little bit long, but we work very closely with them. We work with national charities like Step Change, which provide free online or phone advice related to debt. We're able to work with a local authority to negotiate council tax reductions for people. So for us, that involves working with our local community hub, run by the local authority, but there is also a telephone line, which you can find through that Cardiff Money Advice website, which will allow people to speak to people at the council who can help with council tax reductions. We work with Welsh Water. Welsh Water offer tariff reductions for people based on income and disability or health conditions. So we liaise with Welsh Water to reduce people's water bills. We work and enable people to access the Warm Home discount, which can be up to £150 a year off your fuel bills if you're claiming certain benefits. So we're able to help people access that. We offer support with the Welsh Government Discretionary Assistance Fund, DAF, which can provide household items and emergency cash for people. And we're able to help with cost of living discretionary schemes. So that's a whole range of support that we're able to offer day to day, primarily through the drop-in guidance and support sessions. And there's a few statistics at the bottom there for how many people we've been able to help over the course of a year, 3,000 people. And we've increased household income by £106,434 by supporting 525 households. And the numbers that we're supporting are increasing all the time. Moving on to our long-term participatory strength-based work, which we would see as the real strength of ACE and would be our preferred way of working, really. This approach is characterized by much longer-term solutions, a long-term engagement with hundreds of individuals in our community. It's very much orientated about relationships and is based on those relationships. And it's often membership-based, so it's not necessarily open access. We use membership as a way of creating a sense of ownership and a sense that people are not charity cases, but are people who are participating in solutions but that both they and their neighbours benefit from. And it brings together the strength-based approach with needs-based. So we're still responding to very obvious and specific needs, but we're very much using the strengths and the resources and the opportunities that exist in our community. One of the challenges of this and the tensions of these longer-term approaches is they tend to be more limited in the numbers we can support than the shorter-term activities. And I think it'll become clear as I describe the sort of things we do, why that is. But that's one of the challenges, is always to build our capacity to increase the number of people we can work with in this way. So the first thing is our local pantry. This is our affordable food project. Through it, we provide, we have 200 members, and we provide about 150 community members with food every week. It's a membership model, so people pay a £5 a week membership fee, and they receive up to about £25 worth of food every week. It's good food, it's choice, it operates like a shop, so there's the dignity and the pleasure of being able to choose what you take home. You get a kind of, it's run by volunteers, and you get a one-to-one service when you come in. So a volunteer will help you look at what you might pick up. They'll share recipes that you can use particular items to cook, and people will then share recipes with each other online. It's as much as with anything in ACE about relationships and people building relationships that support and sustain them outside of the pantry as well. But it's a very effective and popular way of providing long-term affordable food for people who maybe have accessed the food bank initially, but are looking for long-term affordable food beyond that. The volunteers then kind of go off and start projects of their own, and it takes on an energy and a life of its own. And in one case, the volunteers have set up our cafe bar in memory of our colleague Caroline, who died last year, Caroline Barr. And the cafe provides low-cost, healthy meals, and it operates 3 or 4 times a week at lunchtime and breakfast, and it hosts 30, 40 people a day. And it provides food free for people who need it. And the volunteers are very creative. One of the things you harness if you enable local people to participate in this stuff is a real creativity. And one of the great ideas the volunteers had was to run a monthly raffle where they provide a hamper as a prize. And the money that's made through the raffle funds and subsidizes free meals for people who can't afford to pay for them. And there's all sorts of little creative ways that the volunteers find of kind of ensuring that people who really need support and can't afford it receive it. Our Bendig Library of Things is what it says on the tin, really, a library of items that people can come and hire for very low costs. Everything from tools and garden tools to hoovers. The most popular item, I believe, is one of these carpet cleaners that you pay £100 to hire out from the shops, but you can get for £5 from the library. And it provides over 200 items, again, aimed at keeping people's costs down. So they don't have to buy items, they can share resources within their community. One of the loveliest stories we have is actually of we provide an entire camping set for £20 for a week. And we've had holidays, members of the community take first family holidays they've ever had in France. We're really about not just giving people the basics, we want people to have fulfilling and happy and enjoyable lives. So we actually think beyond just putting meals on the table. How can you help people access activities and have leisure time with their families in an affordable way? And the Library of Things is a really good way of doing that. Linked to that, we run a repair cafe once a month. And this again is about keeping items out of landfill and ensuring people don't have to buy new items. We repair everything from hoovers to phones to tablets to TVs. And it means that people, you know, last week, for example, someone came in with a Dyson Hoover, probably 250 quid new. One of our volunteers took half an hour to fix it, and that person saves £250 and has 2-3 more years out of their Hoover. Very effective project, again, brilliant for building relationships, has obviously positive environmental impact, but also helps people keep money in their pockets. But we're very keen not just to be helping people reduce their cost of living, but to tackle the problem upstream as well, because one of the problems associated with it is an issue of pay and people on low incomes. So our Shape Your Future project is a long-term project funded by private donors, which supports people who are already in work to progress to better paid and more fulfilling work. So it's basically a bursary scheme where we can provide people with training, childcare, new equipment to get themselves up as set up as independent traders or self-employed as consultants. And we work with about 100 people across our community already, helping them progress into better paid work and put more money into their pockets. So we're trying to tackle it at both ends, about income, but also the cost of living. Our community shop is another project run by volunteers, which provides clothes, school uniforms, and household items like crockery and toys and other things, again, to keep costs down. And they do special one-off events at Halloween with Halloween costumes or at prom season, again, to help people be able to do everyday leisure, fun family activities to help build and strengthen families and make sure people are having a good quality of life. And the final thing before we move on to the last slide is that we're increasingly doing some lived experience research with the Bevan Foundation, actually trying to involve the community in researching these issues and understanding poverty and experiences of poverty and learning from people's experiences. So it's basically community-based action research, looking at a whole range of issues related to poverty around, so far we've done workshops on housing, on food poverty, and on fuel poverty. And we use some of the learning from that to influence policy and to organize our community around political change. And we do that through an approach called community organizing. So we're increasingly as a community trying to tap into that frustration of meeting need, but also seeing that some of these challenges that people are facing are due to political decisions and people in power making decisions that have negative consequences for our communities. So we're trying to reconnect people with democracy. We're trying to connect with their experiences on the ground of feeding themselves and each other and help them make the links between that and democratic decision making in ways that they can influence those decisions. All this stuff I'm really happy to talk to people about. I'll put my email in the chat box afterwards. If you'd like to hear more about anything we do or come and visit, then please let me know. But you'll see the pantry has 200 members and we see about 150 a week at the moment. The community shop's 100 people a week. And over 150 families access pre-loved school uniforms this year. Library of Things has 195 active members and has loaned out 186 items. And I'm going to move on to the next slide because I can't see that bottom PowerPoint bullet point. Okay, so the final slide. Just a few thoughts about how we reach out to people really and how people find their way to us, and then some of the strengths and then the key challenges for us. How am I doing for time? I think I'm okay. Word of mouth is a massive one for us. We actively encourage friends to invite friends and to accompany people along. And related to that, we work with our volunteers who become advocates for the work. They understand the work, they live in the neighbourhood, they promote activities with neighbours and the people they work with. We already run a GP referral social prescribing scheme around health and well-being, and we've kind of developed that to add a sort of financial fitness element to it. So GPs who believe that one of their patients' struggles are in any way related to finance problems can refer them to us for support. And they'll get one-to-one support from a caseworker and all the usual stuff that I've described around our guidance and support service. We use social media to promote a lot. We have our own very active pages and we actively post into these community pages that exist in both Ely and Caira, some of them very active with literally 8,000–9,000 people on them. So that's a really good way of getting the word out. We do street-based work, so we'll set up a gazebo and get some hot chocolate out and just chat to people on the streets or outside the school gates to let them know what's available. and we host a whole load of events and activities with local people throughout the year. Our most recent one being some big Christmas activities that involve people in a visit to Santa, but also a little look around at what's available if they need support. So what are the strengths of all this? Well, it builds on local assets and strengths. It taps into people's skills and the things that they can contribute. And it's based on an approach. I guess our philosophy is we're trying to build relationships of solidarity and support. So if you do that, you create networks where information can be shared effectively, but you're also creating a culture where people are empowered to meet their own needs and meet each other's needs. So they no longer perceive themselves as charity cases who are passive recipients, but people are active in meeting their needs and their own community's needs. And we find that to be transformational in terms of people's experiences, and often transformational for their families and their wider friendship networks. But there's some key challenges. Some of the challenges around getting people the services they need when they need them has been very difficult, and people will be familiar with that. I've sort of hinted that there's this tension in the organisation now between our strength-based approach and how we maintain that and keep the focus there, whilst also being under significant pressure to meet ever-growing need, quite drastic need. You know, literally at 9 o'clock, 20 people walking through the door without any way of feeding their families. So that's a challenge for us. But you'll see hopefully you've picked up kind of some of the ways we're approaching that in integrating the two types of approach, the long-term strength-based and the short-term needs-based. And that turns into a quality or quantity conversation. You know, some of the best work we do that's really long-term transformational and gives people sustainable ways of meeting their needs and the people around them is harder to open up to more and more people. So the pantry, for example, is getting increasingly difficult to source more food and enough food to feed people. So we're looking at how we build our capacity to do that. So in the case of food, we're currently looking at different models that enable us to feed more people based on some food cooperatives that we've visited in London. That's a quick whistle-stop tour of ACE's work. Hopefully it's been focused enough on the cost of living crisis and the way we're both keeping money in people's pockets, but also helping them earn more money. And in particular, around how we do that in a very participatory and empowering way. So I'm going to stop there. And
all I'm going to do now is to share the questions for the group discussions. We're going to ask you to go into groups of around 7 or 8. Davan is setting them up at the moment. And it'll be just a chance to share your own experiences of work tackling the cost of living crisis. And then we'll have about 10 minutes feedback at the end, and that will help us both get a picture of what people are doing, and you can share them with each other, and also shape the kind of things we might do for future events as well. And there's lots of really good stuff in the chat today, and I would certainly recommend the point about a Benthig event tonight if anybody's interested in what some of the stuff Dave was talking about. So I will just very briefly share this one slide which has got the questions on. We'll also post them in the chat as well. So these are the questions we're asking you to look at. The issues you're seeing in your work emerging as a result of cost of living crisis, what responses you or other organisations you work with are putting in place, and how effective are they proving. We don't have enough facilitators to provide support in all the groups, I'm afraid. So I was going to ask if all the groups could appoint their own facilitator, and somebody who can at least post a little bit of feedback in the chat from each group. We'll have breakout rooms for about 25 minutes, and then I'll give us around 10 to 15 minutes for feedback and discussion afterwards. And I hope will be a good balance between everyone having a chance for a decent contribution within the group and to make wider points to the whole group at the end. I'd be really grateful if anyone is able to post quick summaries of the key issues in the chat. That will just help us keep a decent record of what people have come up with. But I'll be really interested in hearing about some of your discussions, and in particular, what kind of issues the groups have been facing and what effective responses you've seen. So, any of the groups like to kick off? We probably won't have time to get around everyone. It'd be good to hear a selection of voices.
I don't mind adding in some things that we said. Julie here at the top.
Okay, yeah, go for it, Julie. And
Yeah.
I'll go over afterwards.
So we had Scott from the Wales and West Fire Service. So he brought in a couple of things, such as people using unconventional heating apparatus, lots on YouTube and so on. And he says, you know, a lot of it's anecdotal, but huge fire risk for people. And obviously the knock-on effects then to people losing their housing and everything connected, community issues as well there. So he feels that safety can often be something that gets neglected first. People will take risks because they want to cut costs. And then I think it was somebody else asked him about whether they do community rooms. It was Joe, wasn't it? Whether they do community rooms at the fire stations, and apparently they do. So small groups can use the rooms. If it's a full-time fire service, then station, then obviously there's likely to be a crew there to support the people. But otherwise it might not necessarily be that if people are on call. But it is a possibility that they can use those. Joe talked about carers not having enough money to use their cars, and bus services in West Wales are being reduced. So it's not always feasible for them to actually do their job. They can't get to the people they're caring for. And so that's obviously having a big impact on social care. There's funding that's been around for the last year or so regarding community meals. That's all going to end at the end of March. But there is still a definite demand. I can't remember what the figures you said were, Joe, but it was quite a huge difference in what they thought would be the requirement as opposed to what actually was the number of people needing that service. Liz talked about the rise in debt-related referrals, lots of referrals to CAB, but obviously long waiting lists, higher caseloads, higher levels of anxiety and mental health issues, so having to refer to other services, people wanting help straight away. So there was a feeling that since COVID, people are less patient and prepared to wait for things. They want things now. People not being able to afford rental properties, even though there are houses available, people living in crowded properties, and not always thinking about what the alternatives would be if they ended up going and becoming homeless, and where would they then have to live, you know, possibly in even more difficult conditions. The evidence of high-level professionals working in lower paid jobs, where they're having to take quite a lot of time to requalify here in the UK. Links with fuel banks, more tenancy support staff promoting through social media, meetings with people in independent living. The extension of the discretionary housing pot of money. And what else did we look at? Yeah, even nurses, teachers and doctors presenting as homeless these days. So quite a lot there.
Okay, thank you. That's fairly sobering stuff. Clover, do you want to come in?
Yep, thanks, Chris. That was very useful. I mean, as per usual, I'm not quite sure I stuck to the questions, Chris. Okay, but we got a really good feel, and we had a very eclectic, diverse group, which was, so I'm not sure if the workshops were actually planned in that way. But we have Flintshire Council, Melissa, Catherine, Sean, Gareth, and Amal. Are you happy for me to just summarise quickly? Yeah.
Yes,
Cool.
of course.
Cool. Okay. So in terms of the council itself, there were a number of initiatives that were actually in place to support vulnerable citizens and communities, and in particular working with the CVC. Amal raised a really good issue because she was talking about she works in a displaced people in action, and what support is available to those particular groups, because it's quite specific, and also the need for access to information as well. So we probably need to do a little bit of connecting in terms of projects such as East and the Wales Strategic Migration Partnership. There needs to be more information available. Catherine was talking about managing the social prescribing team and fuel poverty as well. And Sian was talking about her work in running a wellbeing centre, which actually mentors people. When we look at some of the challenges for all these different sectors in terms of how they're trying to put in stuff for people that are vulnerable, we actually said that the problems are the duplications. There needs to be better conversations and relationships. But there is a lot of duplication going, which means that the resources that could be gone into developing new approaches are lost. There is something about the sharing of resources, and not only about funding, but about having people that can actually move across the sectors. So there's some continuity of support. There's something about upskilling, and fundamentally something about sustaining some of these practices in going forward. And we all know from the Audit Wales report that actually, you know, we're all very good in a crisis and contingency, but how do we mainstream the way that we actually operate? But when we ask the question about, are we hopeful for the future, or we're pessimistic? And I think fundamentally we were saying we're hopeful for the future. And it must be about the nature of the individuals involved in our business.
Thank you, Clovis. Really useful stuff. And given the nature of who we are as Community Resourcefulness Partnership, some of those issues about making sure the connections are in place and if we can, avoiding duplication are possibly ones that we can look at, actually, because we have got many of the right people in the room, if you like, and perhaps something we can pick up offline, as it were. But drawing it out here is really valuable. I've just been taking quite a lot of notes about what you said. Any other groups like to feedback? So 2 very valuable contributions so far.
Our group mentioned a few things. We sort of said that, you know, the cost of living debt was on the increase, you know, increased referrals to food banks, the impact on people's dignity. They didn't want to be seen as charity cases. Needs to be more conversations held with people around money, and you know, an ongoing support around that. There's a new initiative which is going to be up and running in Pembrokeshire called PWR, which is linked up with the CAB. Ceredigion Council have reached out to all the community and put something in the post about who to access for various terms of support. Pembrokeshire Council have got an online version of that on Connect Pembrokeshire. I think that was kind of it. I probably missed a few bits out, possibly. And just little things, little tips. Like I wasn't aware that Welsh Water would come out and fix a leaky toilet. I thought you'd have to employ a plumber for that, but it's just knowing little things like that that can sort of help somebody's budget.
Thank you. Ian, you've put quite a long comment in the chat, which is quite interesting. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
I can try my best. So in our group there was quite a sort of housing theme to the people who were in there, not necessarily myself, but the others in the group, and really discussed around the idea of that people are struggling and not aware of the support that's available, and that there are different sort of projects cropping up and expanding. So Wales and West expanding the amount of housing support that's being offered across the Carmarthenshire and Powys, and a project in North Wales looking to connect older people and younger people in order to sort of decrease social isolation and increase sort of affordability of housing. We talked about effectiveness, that the projects were effective but not enough to meet the demand of the people that they were serving, or that services were limited to just who falls into a certain category. and then we sort of talked a little bit about the problem of time limited funding, a lack of sort of mapping the assets across a region or community, and the idea of that cost benefit analysis information just helping understand the funding concerns when people lose houses versus being supported to maintain their current accommodation. And that might be down to my lack of knowledge, but you know, that was just our thoughts.
Great. No, thank you. That looks very clear. Are there any other, I've got one general question I'd like to ask, but before I do that, I just wondered if there are any other bits of feedback people want to give. I can't see any hands. Can I just ask the one question? If there's, and this is really for everybody, have there been any areas where you think support could be? Yes, that's a very fair point in the chat, Joe. Where we might be more effective if we either had better collaboration or better sharing of information. I'm partly asking that question because it's one of the things that may be more in our control than finding new resources. It has been hinted at by a couple of people, but I just wondered if there were more examples of it.
All I can say is it certainly came out of our discussion in terms of that idea of knowing the assets that within communities and really sharing that information. How do you get that communicated across regions, across, you know, areas and communities? So yeah, that certainly came out of ours.
Has anyone got any examples where that sharing of information is working particularly well? That's an interesting challenge if nobody's saying yes. Julie.
Yes, we facilitate quite a number of networks and forums across West Wales, but we also do a mental health action West Wales, which incorporates the whole of Wales. So it's basically a sharing about different projects, what's going on, just real networking and finding out what's going on in the area. So the Mental Health Action Mental Health Action Wales runs about 3 or 4 times a year, and Angie Darlington, our director at WAM, facilitates that with another lady from Cardiff.
Thank you, that's really useful to know. Any other examples people want to share?
Yeah, there's one in Cardiff, Aging Well, not organised by myself, it's organised by Cardiff and Vale UHB and the local public health team, but I do attend and I find it very useful. It's aimed at older people, obviously it's an Aging Well programme, but it's a really good way of us changing information on projects that are helping older people live well and independently in their own homes in later years. So it's a really useful way of finding out what's going on in different services, different projects, especially if they're short-term projects as well. So you might not necessarily see the publicity and the conversations we have and the details that go around as well, the mailing lists. Really, really useful information sharing.
Great, thank you.
We have, sorry, Catherine from FLVC, we have health and wellbeing networks are similar to the last two ladies that spoke. So we have networks where we bring people together to talk about what's going on in their services and localities. So we run that in Flintshire and Wrexham. Right. Okay. So yes, so there are a fair number of information sharing networks, but it does also seem that there could be some gaps.
Some ones I've attended as well. There's the Customer Representative Group and Joint RSL, so Registered Social Landlord Forum, that the Department for Work and Pensions organise. So it's for Carmarthenshire, Pembrokeshire and Powys, and we either have online meetings quarterly or face-to-face, but those are really good and helps with, you know, you've got the links if you've got difficult cases and you've got permission. It helps with that networking as well. And then separate to that, there's also it's changed names now, Financial Wellbeing Forum. I think it's now changed from, instead of Financial Capability Forum. So that's organised through Citizens Advice Pembrokeshire, I think, and MAPS are heavily involved as well. So that's really good as well. Meet quarterly for that. Yeah. Great, thank you. I'll come to Joe in a second, but I mean, Leslie summed up what the kind of information was beginning to emerge actually about CDC networks.
And perhaps one of the lessons actually as a CDC health and wellbeing networks might be good entry points for sharing information at a county level if they are universal, because in a lot of areas obviously information sharing isn't universal. Joe, did you want to?
Yeah, I was going to say we've got lots of strategic networks where the professionals meet, but on the ground, because I'm working at a very local level with 2 small communities, people are quite digitally excluded and they're not getting the information from the different charities, the groups and organisations. So we're organising a community drop-in wellbeing hub where we've brought together the charities and organisations to have a rota. So we'll have the cafe once a week, and everybody in that collective or alliance of people are going to offer their support for 1 meeting a month. So in that way, we're all sharing the responsibility. We're actually on the ground in the community, and it's not too onerous then, because it's only a couple of hours once a month, and it's just spreading the love, really, sharing the load. Do it that way.
Thank you. Richard, did you want to add anything from your comment online on the chat? Because you've actually talked about the same subject more or less.
Yeah, but we ran quite a few of them in Gwynedd recently, just to assess how the feeling of older people in a way. And once you went to explain different things available, help and so forth, they tend to switch off when you say, "Oh, go online for further details." So, you know, it's a key factor for older people, I think. Yeah, I don't know how we would go and tackle that, you know, because our world is progressing. So we don't want to slow things down either, do we? But maybe try and get older people more inclusive in using digital platforms, really. Not too sure how we would go around that, but I know, you know, some libraries in Gwynedd offer that service where they can go in and they can have some help filling in forms online and things like that. So maybe more of that, but, you know, not just from the council, but more in community hubs and things like that.
Yeah, no, it's a really important point to take away actually, and I don't think it's unique to you as well. We see it in a lot of the communities we work in. Any other? Sorry, we're running towards the end of the time. Any other final points people want to make? Which case, can I just firstly thank everyone for attending and for your contributions. It's been lots of really interesting discussion.